Happy Saturday afternoon, everyone. What's going on? GoodMicWork back at you with kind of a mini Winged Eagle podcast, even though this is not an official Winged Eagle podcast. Up here at a very strange time today of 2 p.m. local time for me on the West Coast on Saturday. Normally the Winged Eagle podcasts come up at 3 or 5, but I'm now entering post-COVID work life, and it's kind of made my schedule a little bit not as consistent as I'm used to. So because of that, that's why you've seen me up here the past couple of Wednesday nights doing AEW, Dynamite, and NXT reviews, and the last couple of Saturday streams have been short with pay-per-view predictions since we had In Your House last Sunday. So Backlash is coming up tomorrow. We're going to predict that entire card in this episode, and we're also going to get into the big news that was announced, I think, day before yesterday, about Paul Heyman being ousted as head of Raw Creative. Now, it was June 27th or something. It's been less than 1 year, but about 1 year's time since WWE hired Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman to head up the Raw and SmackDown brands, respectively. Bischoff was ousted just a few months into his gig, and here we are, not even a full year. And Heyman is out too, excuse me. And we'll get into that. We'll get into WWE's statement, some of the rumors going around reported by some of the news outlets and dirt sheets and things like that, and my opinions of this and what it means for the future of the brands and Raw and WWE. It seems like it's a hot mess over there right now. And yeah, not looking good. So we'll get into all that, and also we'll touch on last night's SmackDown. We won't go through a full review, but we did crown a brand new Intercontinental Champion last night. Sheamus got pissed. We have some news on a big debut next week, and maybe a couple of other things, news and notes I wanted to mention about SmackDown. And then we'll predict the pay-per-view, and that's going to be it. I have a 90-minute time limit today. I got to be out of here in an hour and a half because I got to head off to work a little bit earlier than normal, but I will be home tomorrow all day off to hang out with you guys. I'll be live tweeting during the pay-per-view and immediately following Backlash. Join me over here for a full review of the show. Link will be posted later on tonight. Let me cruise over here to the chat because I see super chats rolling in like crazy out of my peripherals. Hopefully we'll have a decent audience today. I'll tell you what, the last week or so has been a little bit concerning. I've gone from, great numbers, great views, and then all of a sudden there's this huge drop off and, audiences have been low. So we'll see what kind of numbers we do this weekend and see what kind of engagement we get as my cats are having a Royal Rumble in the bedroom. Never fucking fails, man. Anywho, let me say hello to Devlin. I think you were the first one to pop in. Thank you very much, brother. Good to see you in here as always. And the $5 feels like forever since I last saw a GoodMicWork stream. Really? I thought you were in the last one. Also, currently a mild hangover. All right. Well, you know what, dude? You're young. And if there's one thing I know about you from the Jericho Cruise is you can hang. If I drank a fifth of what you did, I'd probably be in bed for a couple of days, being at the age I am now. But when you're in your mid-20s and your early 20s like that, you can shake it all off. And I saw that dude put down some drinks. You're a warrior, dude. Good luck, and you know what to do. Greasy food, a couple of aspirin, you'll be fine. And thanks for joining us today. How Wheezy, good to see you, brother, as well. Thank you for the $2. How was that apple juice thrown on Sheamus? Or was that apple juice thrown on Sheamus? It wasn't piss, because first of all, they wouldn't have a real piss test in the ring, but I just love that WWE has no clue what piss looks like. Your piss is only going to be that dark and yellow and brown if you haven't peed for 3 weeks. So that was fucking hilarious. But yeah, got it thrown right in the face. We'll talk about that. Typical Vince McMahon humor. He loves that stuff. A Level, thank you for the very generous $15 as well. I appreciate that very much. What's up, Greg? Hope all is well. Be safe and healthy. I'm trying. Definitely trying to be safe. I'm at work all the time now, surrounded by people. So it's a little bit concerning, but I'm doing my best, and thank you very much, man. Appreciate you. Devlin, another one. Thanks again for 5 more. Also, according to a friend of mine who lives with a SmackDown ref, fans are expecting to be at the Performance Center starting July 24th. That's going to be nice. I'm ready for some fans to actually get into the buildings here, even if everything has to be limited to the Performance Center. At least that's something. You can fit 400 people in there. So if you do social distancing and you knock that down by, half or maybe a third, at least you're talking 100 or more people in there to make some noise, because we've seen what 100 or more people will do for AEW. They're starting to have some pretty big pockets of people around the outside of the ring there on Dynamite, and it's made a world of difference. So baby steps as we start easing our way, back into reality. I'm hoping that slowly but surely you'll start with fans at the Performance Center, then smaller gatherings will be allowed, and then, within however many months or a year's time, we'll be back full blown to the way it used to be. At least that's the hope. But yeah, I think we need some fans back, stat. Holy shit, super chat's just rolling. Stone Cold, you are next. Thank you for the $2, dude. I appreciate it. Today was supposed to be my wedding, but GoodMicWork helps. Okay, man, Stone Cold, I apologize for that. I don't know if that's COVID related or what, but thinking about you as always, and I'm glad to be here to help. So glad you're here to hang out with us. We got a loaded 90 minutes to get into, that's for sure. Adrian, thank you, man. No comment, but very generous $20 there as well. Always good to see you. And Spaz Phoenix is here, fellow YouTuber. Go check out my man Spaz. Hey, Greg, thanks as always for everything you do. For people sick of WWE, I have a mega MCU review of the first 19 movies up now on the podcast. Holy shit. Was In Your House and this week's NXT a hard reset for the brand? It could be. I mean, it looks like it. I mean, with Killer Cross now coming out and staking his claim and shit, and Io Shirai being crowned and Charlotte kind of being gone and that experiment being over, I can see that sort of. And we're going to talk about NXT too, because there's also another rumor kind of floating around that Vince is, for some reason, unhappy with NXT and maybe wants to make some changes. And this is probably all going back to the ratings. It feels like any big decision that's ever really made is due to ratings. I feel like the Bischoff one was last year and shit too. So it's their own damn fault. They're the ones that took it off the network. AEW decided to go Wednesdays to go head to head with their network show, and then they countered that by going to USA and doubling the time and being a 2-hour show now, to where all of a sudden now ratings kind of matter. Where they are on the network, it really didn't. They were able to build their fan base that way without having to worry about the pressures of that. So now that they're on USA, they've essentially killed it, and they are going to ruin the vibe that made us all love NXT. I'm extremely nervous when Vince starts getting a stick up his ass about something, and I just wish that it was just one part of the company that he would completely let go of. Just say, Triple H, it's yours. You even have the power to overrule me. Just one thing in the company. Please, goddammit, Vince McMahon, we're begging you. Just leave one little pocket of your giant, enormous business to somebody else and just see how they do it. You know, come on. So let's hope that none of that is true. And who's next here? Joshua Aparicio, good to see you as well, man. Wonder how much those tickets will cost for limited attendance. Yeah, I don't know. And especially if it's at the Performance Center, I don't know if some of those weekly NXT people are going to have the only crack at those, or if it's going to be offered to the general public, or if you're going to have to pay an arm and a leg for it, or if they might treat it like a lot of TV show filmings. Like if you want to go to a game show or something, a lot of times you don't have to like pay any more than anybody else. You just have to get like on a waiting list kind of thing and wait your turn, sort of. So they could do it like that. But knowing WWE, they'll gouge the prices through the roof and make the fans pay through the nose. That's what's most likely. Anyway, that barrage of super chats I think is done. I can actually start getting into the big news here that we want to open with, and that, of course, is Paul Heyman, now out as head of Raw Creative. It looks like, I mean, WWE, my very first reaction to this, and I tweeted it when I found this out, was they're all over the place. They don't know which way is up. They can't decide what they want to do. They make decisions. They undo those decisions. They redo those decisions. The brands are separated. Then they're put back together. The puke-inducing statement that they released, which I'll read to you here in a minute, sounds exactly the same as when they make announcements to separate writing teams and separate brands. They use the same stupid, silly little bullshit lines. So anyway, let's read the statement first. This is what WWE released. I still forget if this was yesterday or the day before because my life has been busy the last couple days. Pretty sure it was Thursday, though. So WWE releases a statement saying, in an effort to streamline our creative writing process for television, we have consolidated both teams from Raw and SmackDown into one group led by Bruce Pritchard. Paul Heyman will concentrate on his role as an in-ring performer. So right away, they answered that question because, you know, when we heard that Paul Heyman was out, I'm like, is he out? You know, this is the advocate for Brock Lesnar. You know, not that Brock can't succeed without Paul Heyman, but it's hard to envision Brock without him. So, you know, my immediate thing was, you know, is he going to go over to AEW or something like that? So it looks like Heyman, according to the reports, is on good terms with the WWE. This was apparently a Vince McMahon decision, but Heyman will be sticking around in his in-ring role. Now, or his on-air role, I should say, not in-ring. So on one hand, this is kind of good for him because there is one thing that I specifically remember discussing last year when I did a video on the announcement of Heyman and Bischoff heading up separate brands, and I was in favor of it. And I was like, these are two guys that headed up Vince's really only competition back in the day. So to make them in charge of brands is actually a good idea. And it puts people in charge. They can focus on one brand to where their attention isn't, you know, mismashed up and they're constantly refocusing their energy on different things instead of focusing on one brand and one set of talent and one set of storylines. And we thought that that would make stories better. We thought that would add value to stories, get us a little bit more invested because there's now time to invest in writing those storylines, but we saw very little of that. You know, one of the biggest complaints, I think, from all of us from Raw and SmackDown is it's so much rinse and repeat nonsense bullshit. You know, they just use the same scenarios, you know, a promo that leads to a six-man and then a commercial and an impromptu tag, and they just, you know, they just use the same templates over and over and over and over again. Even I try to change my shit up every now and then, for fuck's sake, but you know, it just gets exhausting because you can see half the things they do coming from 7.5 miles away. So when this announcement was initially made, I'm like, good, that's good, we need this. And WWE used a lot of the same language when they made this big announcement that they want to, you know, streamline, you know, the creativity and an effort to give the fans the best product possible, all that kind of crap. And also, you know, back then, before the pandemic, the XFL was about to launch and his attention was going to be distracted. So a lot of that was probably done also to make sure the brands can run without him kind of thing, even though I'm pretty sure they can. Now with the XFL gone, that could have also factored into the decision here to let Paul Heyman go from this role. Now, there's so much to digest here because one thing that annoys me is that WWE, they constantly make these like panic button decisions. The ratings suck right now, but there is a pandemic. Now, before the pandemic, the ratings weren't great, but as a fan, I'm not really concerning myself with the ratings right now during these crazy times. There's no fans in the arena. Everybody's lives have changed over the past 6 months. Wrestling probably is not a priority for some as much as it used to be. Plus, it's a harder show to watch now, even on AEW. Even though they're doing a great job with the empty arena stuff and the little bit of fans they have there are helping, it's still an empty arena. It's still not the same as when the fans are there. It's still not as exciting. And both brands, WWE and AEW and NXT, they've had their moments. We've had some great matches. We've seen some good things on pay-per-view. We've seen some off-site cinematic stuff that's been wonderful. But overall, it's still been a vastly more boring product without the fans, prior to, the Royal Rumble and shit like that. So I don't think anybody should be taking the ratings that seriously, at least for right now, because if I was not doing this YouTube channel and I was a casual fan, I probably would not be watching. I would have watched Raw or SmackDown one week and be like, oh, this is unwatchable, and probably wouldn't go back to it and would be focusing my energy on my life. So when they make these decisions that's obviously based on ratings, because the ratings are in the shitter, I wish that they would have given Paul Heyman a little bit more time to grow there. They gave him time on SmackDown. Look what he did with that promotion or that brand all those years ago. He was able to build it around the SmackDown 6, not the catering crew that they're calling Raw right now. So, and I think he was given a little bit more than a year to do that, to put together the core group of the Rey Mysterios and the Eddies and the Benoits and the Edges and Brock and Angle. Who else was in the original 6 there? That is, that takes time. And I think Paul Heyman should have at least been given some time, because he's clearly, as we watch Raw, has been focused on some of the younger talent and building the shows around them. And some of the people that he apparently was really pushing for and advocating for were guys like Drew McIntyre, who's currently the champion, Aleister Black, Buddy Murphy, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, even Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, who apparently Vince pulled the plug on for whatever reason. That's an infuriating story. If any of that Vince stuff is true about that, I don't know why. I thought the two made a great looking tag team. I think they make great looking single stars, but if they can't figure out anything to do with them as singles, I think if you color coordinate them, give them a team name, make them a serious tag team, you name me 2 more athletic people that are on the same team. And that includes the Bucks or anybody else. I mean, those guys are ridiculously good, and I think together could have been great. But after the first couple of times they've tagged, we haven't seen them. Apparently, that's all due to Vince. The Street Profits and Liv Morgan and Apollo Crews are all others that Paul Heyman really liked and tried to push and build, and has done a little bit with them. But now that he's out, I'm wondering if these guys are going to be less focused on TV. I feel like Aleister Black should be making a push at some point to be a contender, and I worry about that now. I think with Heyman in charge, he would have had that opportunity, even if it took a while. It took Drew a while to get there. When did Drew come back? And come back to NXT. It's been a few years now, and he was on Raw kind of floundering there for a while too, until they finally started pushing him a little bit late last year. So even with him, it did take some time. So I think Aleister had some promise, but now with Heyman out, he's one of the ones I'm worried the most about. And like we said, Bruce Pritchard is now going to be in charge of Raw along with his SmackDown duties, which on the surface makes no sense, because you don't want the same brain involved. That's just too much to do. You're just going to get less creative now. If now you're already seeing the same rinse and repeat nonsense every week on both shows, you're going to see more of it if there's just one creative person in charge of both. This just seems like a horrible decision. I don't understand it. And like we said with the XFL, maybe Vince is going to be a little bit more hands-on anyway. He was probably making Paul Heyman's life extremely miserable. Heyman's probably happy to be done with this. I said this last year when I talked about it in the video. I said Heyman and Bischoff, I think, will do fine in the role, but I'm surprised at their age and this stage of their life that they would even want to take on a role like this that's got to be this loaded with stress, and you've got an absolute madman breathing down your neck. Luckily, Bischoff was able to get off the ship 4 months in, and now less than a year in, Heyman's gone as well. So this decision that was supposed to better the product has now been completely 180'd, and now Vince is back in charge with, as many people say, his number one yes man in Bruce Pritchard. Now, I don't necessarily consider Bruce that much of a yes man. I know he knows how Vince thinks, and he thinks in similar ways. And because he was gone for the company for a long time. If he was a yes man and an ass kisser, he would have been back there years ago. So I think Bruce can think for himself and everything, but I think Vince also wants somebody he knows will run the product like him, because he's been side by side with Vince since the 80s, and he really knows how Vince thinks and how Vince wants things done. In a lot of ways, Bruce was trained to produce TV that way. So Vince probably knows that. And I don't, Vince is getting up there too. I mean, what is going to happen here? I thought by now, by the time Vince got into his 70s, we would have a clear idea of what his succession was going to be. Who was going to be in charge, who was going to be heading up what. We all thought it would be Stephanie and Triple H for the most part, maybe Shane McMahon involved. And then when they started including Bischoff and Heyman, I'm like, wow, they're really bringing in some, old school promoters and executive producers to come in and help out with this as well. This all seemed good to me. So for Bischoff and Heyman, who both I think would have things to offer a wrestling company, for them both to be having no creative control, or not creative control, but creative say anymore, to me is kind of a waste. I don't know. But Heyman's probably better off, like I said. At his age, everything he's done in his life, this should be his retirement years, his twilight years. He should not have to have a job that's going to stress him the fuck out and make him grit his teeth and grind his teeth right down to the gums. He needs to, live a little bit more happy of an existence. He makes plenty of money as a sidekick to Brock, and he's done his thing, and Heyman's fine, and Bischoff is too. They shouldn't need this opportunity, and they shouldn't need these gigs. And I worried about their mental health and their stress level by taking these roles on a year ago. So at least if they're out now, maybe they'll live 10 years longer than they would have had they stayed in these roles for an extended period of time. But I just think the decision it sounds way too, it just sounds way too spontaneous. And I feel like Vince gets mad. We hear about, there's some reports, including the Observer, are reporting that, Vince's demeanor backstage is a little high strung. He seems openly frustrated. Sometimes he can be on the warpath. A lot of these stories of Vince I only buy halfway into, because every time we've never seen really Vince on camera losing his fucking mind on people backstage and stuff. So these horror stories that Vince is just fucking Satan, I think are overblown. I think Vince is a psycho, and I think Vince is incredibly out of touch, and I think Vince harms the product a lot with a lot of his decisions. But I don't believe it's quite to the degree that the fans make it out to be. I think they just like to repeat things, and they like to say it over and over without even really analyzing if it makes sense or not. But some of these stories about Vince angry backstage and stuff, there's been corroboration of that. We've seen and heard that from a lot of people before. A lot of sources, a lot of wrestlers have talked to the journalists and said, yeah, he's a fucking maniac and stuff. So when decisions like this are made, it doesn't seem like they're thought out well. They're just doing it. Fuck it. Bruce is in charge now. I'm like, do you really want to do that? I mean, I like Bruce. I think Bruce is a smart guy and everything, but Jesus, man, you had like Bischoff and Heyman there. Instead of like just getting rid of them altogether, maybe you just change up the roles a little bit. And I don't think either guy would want to necessarily work underneath Bruce, but if it's not working out, somehow try to figure out a way to keep the minds there. Get what you can. Basically, if Heyman and Bischoff, or Heyman specifically we're talking about here, isn't able to give you what you need creatively, then try to use him in a way that can be useful. I don't know, maybe just keep him around on the creative team, but maybe he's no longer head creator, but that would be a demotion. Heyman might not want to do that, but sometimes I just think these decisions, this does not sound like a decision that's going to better the product. And their little disgusting statement here, and an effort to streamline our content. Bullshit. This isn't going to streamline anything. This is going to fuck it up. This is going to make it less creative. This is going to make it less interesting. You're going to go through the same old ridiculous nonsense that we see week in and week out on TV. And it's even going to be worse now, because there's not going to be any like really creative or original ideas. And now with Bruce Pritchard, he's just going to do whatever the fuck Vince says, which I know Heyman and everybody else had to as well. But Vince will probably get a little bit less pushback from Bruce, I guess. And Vince just wants his shows run his way. So I seriously doubt that anything's going to get better because of this decision. The one thing we are getting is some decent wrestling, because we got to remember the roster is still stacked with talent. Last night on SmackDown, it kind of reminded me of what the Intercontinental title should really be about. One match isn't enough to restore the Intercontinental title to the glory days of being the workhorse title, but seeing Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles fucking tear it up on SmackDown last night for that belt, even though it's ugly as shit now, I think is promising, and we can get some really good matches and some good in-ring stuff, but it's usually the wrestlers doing that and not the writers and stuff. So we'll see. I mean, I don't see how this can possibly benefit in any way. If Vince is worried about the ratings, I don't know why in the world he thinks that this will improve the ratings? How? What the hell is Bruce going to write down that's going to make people, tune in more? And at this point, too, I think it's a lot of, like I said, the pandemic and how empty arena shows just plain and simply suck. But even without that, I still think that a lot of the reason why fans are turned off with WWE and turned off with wrestling is just because how different the product looks in general. We still have, a million different commercial breaks, the way they plug and they promote stuff and they hammer sentences and phrases and taglines into your head. They overproduce the shit out of everything. The promos are cheesy and corny. Even when Paul Heyman is in charge, you still have really cheesy and corny lines delivered by really cheesy and corny wrestlers. I think just a lot of just the overall, just the way WWE is in general, I think is a turnoff to WWE, even if you have some decent internal storylines going on here or there, like on SmackDown with Mandy and Otis, which has really caught the attention of all of us and has turned out to be one of the better and best storylines that WWE has had in the last couple of years. But still, we look at the product as miserable, as a failure, as boring, as a disaster. We still look at that overall that way, even though we have a little pieces of, entertainment in there that's fun to watch. It's just overall, it's just a tough thing to watch now. So even if you have somebody like a Paul Heyman, or you brought back somebody like Vince Russo, or anybody else that's had success from a creative standpoint in wrestling, I don't think they would be enough to change the fans' opinion of what WWE is. Because Vince is still going to be there and the fans are going to, go back to him anytime anything is not good on TV. It's going to be Vince's fault. Most times it is, but it's getting to the point now where, everything they do is like, oh, it's Vince's fault. That's just the way Vince wants it and shit like that. I'm like, it might have been something he didn't even have anything to do with. So I don't know. It's disappointing. It's a bummer. But some of the other news and notes on this story as well was, apparently, like I said, Heyman and WWE will remain on good terms, and that even though XFL being gone could be a factor, you have to wonder about what Vince's future is going to be beyond his years. I mean, he's probably going to live to be 100 years old, but he's starting to look his age. He's getting older. What happens if he gets sick or something? I feel like if Vince were to die tomorrow, I'm sure some of the fans would say, oh, WWE's going to be great. Thank God he's dead. I said this a couple of years ago that I think very, very little is going to change when he goes. You might have some things like this, like maybe Paul Heyman would have been ousted so quickly. Maybe a lot of those crazy, off-the-cuff, spur-of-the-moment, anger-driven decisions that he might be likely to make sometimes, maybe those will go away. But the overall product and the way it looks, I don't think it's going to change at all. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better with him gone, but you got to wonder if he's got plans in place when he does go away or get sick or die or something, because if he were to die tomorrow, I feel like shit's in disarray. We don't even know what Triple H's role is right now. This is the guy that we thought was going to be the next Vince, and last we heard, he got a demotion. So it seems like it's a mess right now. I'm nervous internally about WWE almost getting, too big for its own britches, and it feels just like a big, giant clusterfuck. And now it's the Bruce Pritchard Show, and that's that. So what do y'all think of that? Let me go in here and cruise up and knock out any super chats that were rolling in while I've been flapping my lips. Could you guys do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me? I would really appreciate it. Let me knock out a couple of super chats, and then we'll get into SmackDown and the Backlash predictions. And also, I've got written down here that The Undertaker's Last Ride Chapter 4 is on tomorrow. I still don't know. I thought it usually comes on after the pay-per-views, but I'm like last time, I think you can probably access this tomorrow morning. So if I can watch it tomorrow before Backlash, I will. But more than likely, I'll be talking about Chapter 4 of The Last Ride on Monday night for the Raw review. So keep that in mind. It sounds like it's going to be pretty good. I think this is the one where they focus on the tag team debacle in Saudi Arabia, I think, right? And then after that, it's going to be Chapter 5, and, that might be the end of it there. So that's going to be fun tomorrow. That should be an excellent watch. Let me get back to where I was. Joshua, I got yours. There's Adrian again. Thank you for 10 more bucks, dude. I appreciate it. Painted the house today. Wow. back fucked, chilling, having a few beers, listening to Good Mic Work. Yeah, painting is hard work. A whole house? You're like a Karate Kid, man. Did you go side to side or up, down? I hope you went side to side because that's how you block, man. But yeah, kick back, relax, put your feet up. You definitely, if anybody paints their house, they've definitely earned a cold brew. Appreciate you hanging out today. Spaz, thanks for 5 more. Thinking far ahead to Survivor Series. If they put the SmackDown title on Kairi Sane, is a champions match of Sane versus Shirai versus Asuka the best way to go? Yeah, it is. Still don't know what the deal with Kairi Sane. We thought she was out the door. We thought she was going to be jobbed out and done and off back to Japan or something. But now if she's going to stick around, that's one hell of a triple threat. I'm down with that. Man, that would be fun for Survivor Series. Could we make it that far? Asuka would have to survive. So would Io Shirai. And you're right. That's looking far ahead. I love that match, but that might have to be something that they try to throw together prior to Survivor Series. I don't think Io or Asuka will make it that. Maybe Io will. I think Asuka will probably drop the belt at SummerSlam, I think. That's just my feeling on it. Who's next? Oh, no. Okay, that was it. I was under the impression that I missed like 20 of these things. Okay. Good. All right. I'm not as far behind as I thought I was. Let's move into last night's SmackDown now. Like I said, I'm not going to go through any sort of like match-by-match results because aside from the Intercontinental title match, none of this shit matters because the pay-per-view's tomorrow, so what's the point of talking about this? But I do want to discuss 4 key points here. The first one is, of course, AJ Styles defeating Daniel Bryan in the finals of the Intercontinental title tournament in a spectacular match. Now, when WWE puts their show on a major network like Fox that outside non-wrestling fan eyeballs might see from time to time as they're channel surfing and shit like that, that's the type of match I like to see on there. And it was for the Intercontinental title, and even though I'm disgusted with what the Intercontinental title has not only become, but what it looks like, that was almost like, it briefly made me remember what it used to be like when Brett and Perfect and Shawn and Savage and Steamboat were holding that belt, because it was the wrestler's title. And this match was the very definition of that. In the end, AJ Styles won completely clean with a Styles Clash and a phenomenal forearm to Daniel Bryan. But man, they went back and forth for a while. It was a long match. It was a good match. And it was a great representation of what the Intercontinental title should be about. And AJ Styles got the win. And it's kind of cool here because this is now the second title. I don't think they've ever done anything with the tag in the U.S. with these two, but a couple of years ago, Daniel Bryan beat AJ Styles, ended his long run with the WWE title. Remember that on SmackDown, turning heel? And AJ Styles now defeats Daniel Bryan to take the Intercontinental title. So that's kind of cool, building upon the WWE side of the history of Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, now that they've competed not only all over the world in the independents, but now in WWE for multiple championships. Very cool and good stuff. And I had a feeling, we talked about it a little bit last week, I think initially I was thinking Daniel Bryan could win the title and maybe do that Drew Gulak match sometime in the future, putting the title on Drew. But since AJ got beat last week, you know, I kind of had a feeling he was going to be the one coming out of the match here with the title. So good for him. New Intercontinental Champion. We'll see how long he lasts. I like him a lot more than Sami Zayn. I like Sami Zayn, but at the time of Sami holding the title, he really wasn't wrestling that much, and he had that fluke-ass win over Strowman, and I just didn't really like his run. So AJ being champ, much better guy to have hold that title right now, and we'll see how long his run lasts. And a championship gold is now back around the waist of AJ Styles, and that he's had quite the impression. Can you believe he's been there 4.5 years now? January of 2016, right? So it still seems incredibly fresh to me that AJ has only been in the company for a short time, but he's been there 4.5 years. Unreal. Got to mention the Jeff Hardy piss test segment. This was so stupid. The show opened with this. Sheamus has basically hired a doctor, and they got doctors out there, and they got this cubicle set up, and he's basically saying that he's not going to sign the contract at Backlash to face Jeff Hardy until Jeff Hardy takes a urine test to prove that he's not like inebriated or something. I'm like, well, he could still get fucked up before the pay-per-view. Like this does nothing, because even if it comes back negative, can't believe I'm saying this out loud, he can still take drugs before he goes into his Backlash match if he wanted to. So I don't get why they would even do this. It was just a tool to insert potty humor, which is Vince's favorite thing. We should do a list. Somebody should compile a list. I don't have the memory for this, but maybe you guys do. Just start compiling a list of every time WWE has used bathroom humor in a segment. How many times has shit fallen from the ceiling? I think at least twice, falling on the Spirit Squad and maybe somebody else. They were doing the deal. Didn't Big Show pee on someone? Tommy Dreamer ate a urinal cake. The British Bulldog got rock bottomed into a tray of dog shit. How many times must they do this? And it was so dumb. So anyway, Jeff Hardy, I guess he agrees to this. He takes the piss, and of course, it's like super dark brown yellow, which was hilarious because Jeff Hardy must not have taken a piss since Christmas for it to look like that. And the doctor checks it, and it's an instant test. He goes, it's negative or whatever. They jaw a little bit more on the mic, and then in the end, Jeff Hardy grabs the piss, and he says the old better to be pissed off than pissed on, and he throws the piss right in Sheamus's face, splashes him in the face. Just, it was apple juice. It wouldn't even, like, I feel like if they would have done it better, maybe I would have gone like, ew, that's gross or whatever, but it didn't even, you just laughed at it. It's fucking stupid. So anyway, piss to the face by Jeff Hardy to Sheamus, and now their match is on at Backlash, and we'll predict that in a minute. I also want to shout out the New Day. Very cool entrance. When they came out to the ring, they took a knee, they raised up a fist, and they were both wearing Breonna Taylor armbands. I thought that was very cool. So I wanted to shout out Big E and Kofi because we love those guys. And Matt Riddle has been officially announced to debut next week on the June 19th edition of SmackDown. So there you go. That's pretty much SmackDown in a nutshell. We saw some other stuff. Tucker is now back on TV with Otis, and Strowman was in action and shit. But overall, SmackDown really didn't matter. Those were the key points last night, and I wanted to mention those. And now we can start predicting Backlash. Now, I looked around today to check if I was missing anything, and I think I'm going to wind up missing a couple of kickoff matches. They will probably announce something today or tomorrow, but I still only have the 7 matches written down, so we'll predict those in a minute. Oh yeah, natty farting. I forgot about the natty farting. Choppy pee pee. Well, I don't know if that was bathroom. That was more, well, it's close enough. Vicky did something, I guess. I forgot about the natty farting. Jesus. Oh, yikes. Let me cruise up and knock out a super chat before I get into the predictions here. Michael, is it you? Yeah, Michael Cuomo. Good to see you, man. Appreciate the $5. Back in 94. If Vince was sent behind bars, how do you think Jerry Jarrett would have done? Running WWF during WWE or Vince's absence, or would it remain the same? From 1994's terms, I don't know if we would have necessarily noticed anything different. The business didn't move as fast. They were taping 4 TVs at a time, you know, and had a long time. They had months to set up storylines and always knew a general direction where they were going to go far ahead from what they do now, where we heard, you know, in a lot of the news and notes going around about the Paul Heyman news, they said that there's so many multiple rewrites going on, and we would see things like the show would be a couple hours away and they'd be rewriting the whole damn thing. So that's not something you saw in 94. You didn't rewrite a Raw an hour before it went on air. It was already in the can. And even if it was live, you weren't rewriting it. You knew what you were doing. So I think at that time, depending on how long Vince was behind bars, if he was just there a couple of years, might have caused a delay on the Attitude Era. WCW would have gotten too far ahead for them to ever catch up, and they would have been fucked either way. But at least for that first couple of years, 94 and 95, those years I think would have ran off without a hitch. As a fan, I probably wouldn't have noticed a difference. But once you got to around 96 and 97 and talent started jumping and shit, that's a whole different story. And a lot of the rumors, too, about the Jerry Jarrett stuff have been somewhat debunked. He wasn't necessarily brought in, I don't think, to be Vince's replacement. He was just brought in to be, you know, a person there creatively with that Vince trusted and with a lot of wrestling knowledge and has experience in promoting and stuff like that to be a member of the team. What his actual role would have been, I'm not quite sure. But he was there. I mean, after Vince, you know, even after the trial was over, it took a while before he got out of there. So yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, the first couple of years would have been virtually no difference. But after that, we might not have gotten to the Attitude Era, and WWE might have been too far behind. You know, they wouldn't have been able to build a Stone Cold or Edge and Christian or Rock or guys like that. So would have been different. Thank you for the $2, How Wheezy. Remember the time Sean threw urine on Vince? No, I don't. I don't remember that. When was that? I'm not surprised. That was probably involved in the, was it the DX stuff, or maybe during the build to the Sean and Vince WrestleMania match? One or the other, I'm assuming. They'd bring him the chicken and say Vince likes cock or whatever. Remember all that crap? Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Pat Patterson had the skid mark. Yeah, so there's so many, like, examples of this. More than we could even list. It's like Vince's favorite thing. I don't know why. All right. Let's do Backlash. We got Backlash coming up tomorrow. This card is, I don't know. I think it has a chance to be a good show, but there's a couple of things here I'm just not sure about. And I'm pretty confident that In Your House was going to be better than this, but we'll see. We'll go through all this stuff here. Like I said, I'm only going to predict the 7 matches currently as of 2:30 p.m. the day before Backlash. This is what is on WWE's website. So there's probably going to be a couple of kickoff matches here announced, but I don't have those. If I do, I'll predict them on Twitter tomorrow. So anyway, let's start with, what are the non-title matches here? Well, now let's just go from the bottom. Let me start with the one I got written down first. Apollo Crews defending the United States title against Andrade. To me, this is pretty much a given, although any outcome here, because I'm assuming this is going to be mostly live tomorrow. I think Edge and Randy Orton has already been taped. We did hear that. But the rest of this stuff, I think, is live. Shit, I don't know the taping schedule. So now that Bruce is out, maybe that could change the outcome of some stuff here, or Heyman is out and Bruce is in charge. They might change some outcomes that they initially had in mind, but I'm still going to say no, that's not going to affect this match. Apollo just won the title. I think it would be very asshole-ish of them to take the belt off of him because Heyman was the only one who liked him, kind of thing. That's just completely effed up. Plus, I feel like they've kind of been teasing maybe an Andrade turn. You know, he's going to definitely have some sort of a falling out here with Zelina and Angel Garza any day now, it feels like. So I feel like that could happen here. Apollo Crews could win, retain the title. Andrade gets assaulted by Garza and Zelina after the match, and he's now a babyface. Maybe something like that is what I'm guessing. We have the tag team titles on the line as well. Triple threat match. Champions Bayley and Sasha defending against Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross and the Iconics. I said this last week. I don't think they would put the titles on Bayley and Sasha just for them to lose again to the Iconics unless you pull the trigger on the Sasha-Bayley split now by having them lose not once but twice to the Iconics for the title. But no way. They just won the titles. I think they're going to hang on to them for a while. Plus, I also think they're going to show up in NXT. When you hear things like Vince wants to incorporate main stars into NXT, I really hope that doesn't get out of hand. They've done it a couple of times before, like last year at Survivor Series, without it damaging the feel of NXT. You know, it didn't like completely ruin it because it was a short-lived concept and they were gone. So I think if Bayley and Sasha go there, that's fine because at least they're the tag champs and at least they can have some cool matches there. And to see Sasha and Bayley back in NXT, I think is going to be pretty awesome. So I am in no rush whatsoever to see these two drop the tag team titles. And I think they're probably going to save that for a little bit closer to SummerSlam time and eventually do the match there unless they're waiting to see what happens with the pandemic and how long fans will not be around and where SummerSlam is even going to be. But I think all of us thought that by now, I mean, I thought we were going to get Bayley and Sasha at WrestleMania. So now we're pushing this all the way to SummerSlam. How much longer can they drag this out? But in terms of tomorrow, Bayley and Sasha all the way retaining the titles. We've got Jeff Hardy and Sheamus in a piss on a pole match. No, I'm just kidding. That match is on now since Jeff Hardy was negative in his piss test. But he's not going to, Sheamus isn't going to beat him, right? They seem to be rebuilding Jeff to this big redemption story and him talking about his issues and making this big story out of it and all these vignettes and all this stuff. Plus the way he was, I mean, I know he splashed urine or piss in Sheamus's face and kind of got the last laugh on SmackDown, but for Jeff Hardy's character, that was a really humiliating thing for him to go through, that Sheamus would put him through all that. So I think everything points to Jeff Hardy getting the win here in that match. And moving on to something else, come SummerSlam. Asuka defending the Raw Women's title against Nia Jax. Another no-brainer, at least in my mind, unless WWE really wants to set the internet on fire. They could. If they wanted to pour gasoline on Twitter and just throw that match on it as soon as the 3 count happens when Nia Jax becomes the new women's champion, and they just want to sit back and admire their destruction, they could do it and have Nia Jax win here, but I say no way. Asuka all the way here. I think she's got to hold the title for a little while. I don't think she was put in this position to be a transitional champion, even though she might be kind of one. I think if she's going to be passing that belt off to anybody, it's probably going to be Shayna Baszler. I mean, maybe Charlotte, but I think Baszler is the one they're initially or eventually going to build to at some point, unless they include Charlotte in the mix and we get Charlotte, Asuka, Baszler triple threat at SummerSlam. Wouldn't be surprised, but Nia Jax winning here I think would be ridiculous. Asuka all the way. Plus Nia Jax interfered last week in the Charlotte and Asuka match and cost Asuka the victory. Payback time, bitch. Asuka all the way. She's going to retain the title. Everybody's retaining their titles here, which is why I'm a little nervous. I might be wrong about one of these. Because next, we've got Braun Strowman taking on The Miz and Morrison in a handicap match. Again, very little doubt in this one for me anyway, unless WWE wants to shake things up, which they've already done that creatively. They did that creatively this week, ousting Paul Heyman. If they want to do something on pay-per-view to really get some buzz going, to really get everybody talking, and to tune into Raw the next night, they might do something crazy here with some of these matches. But as far as the Strowman and Miz and Morrison thing, no way. Strowman's going to win here. He's going to win hard. I think we might get The Fiend in this. I don't think we'll get The Fiend costing Strowman the victory, although he could. But Miz and Morrison co-champion thing, no, they're not going to do that. So maybe Strowman just wins, puts them both down, probably pins them both at the same time, and then maybe The Fiend comes out, makes his presence known, and that's going to be your match heading into the summer, heading into either Extreme Rules or SummerSlam between Strowman and The Fiend. We also have Drew McIntyre defending the WWE title against Bobby Lashley. Again, pretty confident about this one. I say it's going to be a deal where Lashley has got Drew in the full Nelson, and Drew is going to power out of it, and then he's going to claymore Bobby Lashley. He's going to beat Bobby Lashley and retain the WWE title. But again, Heyman out, Pritchard in, shake things up? No. They put the title on Bobby Lashley here, I'd be very surprised. But it's not out of the question, but I'm pretty confident that Drew will be retaining the title there. So in all those title matches, McIntyre, Strowman, Asuka, the tag titles, and Apollo, everybody is retaining their belts. Which one of these do you guys think I'm wrong on? Are we really going to go through the entire pay-per-view tomorrow with no title changes? I think most fans would be okay with that, because who wants to see any of these people lose the titles? I don't think the fans would complain about that, because do we want to see Apollo drop the belt? We like Apollo. Bayley and Sasha, would we rather see one of those two other teams as champions ahead of them? Probably not. Does anybody want to see Nia Jax beat Asuka? Hell to the no. Does anybody want to see Miz and Morrison as co-champs? Fuck no. Does anybody want to see Bobby Lashley be a champion? Not I. So I guess they all have to retain here. But I could be wrong. Feel like something's got to happen somewhere. And that leaves us with what I consider to be the main event. Edge versus Randy Orton in the greatest wrestling match ever. The greatest wrestling match ever has to be the main event, right? Although it's possible this will not be the main event. It's already been filmed. They could do this in the middle of the show and close with something else. They could close with Strowman beating Miz and Morrison in a big Fiend confrontation or something like that to close out the show. Wouldn't be surprised there. But they could also go with Edge and Randy Orton. But this is the marquee match that they're marketing as the greatest wrestling match ever, which is just hysterically stupid and really, really annoyed me at first, because I'm like, what are they doing? And then the more I thought about it, I've been talking about this recently, probably in the last 3 weeks, I've completely just, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm basically no longer annoyed by the match, because you have to basically just accept the stupidity of it. You have to accept how dumb the tagline is and how impossible it is for them to ever be able to accomplish that impossible goal that they have set for themselves. So the more and more I looked at it, and the more and more I was reading social media posts from Randy Orton, seems to me like this is a big rib. Seems to me like Vince McMahon is giving these guys this tagline to mess with them and to poke fun of them behind the scenes. I think they're doing this internally to amuse themselves. And when you look at it in that context, this really doesn't bother me. And it's pretty smart that WWE had Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles on SmackDown last night instead of this pay-per-view, because they wouldn't have even been the greatest wrestling match of that night, much less ever. So Edge versus Randy Orton, apparently, according to the reports, this thing went about 30 or 35 minutes. Don't know if that's going to be edited down a lot at all. for the pay-per-view. They didn't edit shit out, it seemed like, out of the WrestleMania match, because a lot of fans, the biggest criticism of that match was that it was too long. So I'd be really surprised if WWE made that same mistake. So I think the reports right now is the taping went as long as 30 or 35 minutes, but let's hope that this is a 20-minute match. This does not need to go 30 no matter what they do. And I don't know. I mean, it's all in the ring, so how much editing can they really do here? You know, it's probably going to wind up being a really, really long match. As far as who wins, this is another thing that's kind of tough, because on the surface, you would think, well, of course, Edge is going to win, but what's their plan for Edge after this? And does Randy Orton just job twice to Edge and that's it, and then Edge moves on to something else? What does Randy Orton do after that? And I also think that this might be still only the second of what would likely be 3 matches. They could do a rubber match type of thing here. I feel like Randy Orton's got to win something. So basically, if Edge wins here, he's 2-0 against Randy Orton. This issue is dead. Edge is moving on to somebody else at SummerSlam. But if Randy Orton wins, you're almost guaranteed a third match, a blow-off match, possibly at Extreme Rules, even though it feels like everything's working in reverse. They already had the street fight at WrestleMania. Then you do a wrestling match here, and now you go back, to another type of street fight at Extreme Rules? Or maybe even push and don't have them work at Extreme Rules at all and have their blow-off come at SummerSlam. That's actually more likely. But again, what do you do at SummerSlam? What kind of stipulation do you have? Is it a ladder match? Is it a loser leaves the brand match? Loser goes to SmackDown or something like that. Like, I don't know. They could do anything. So it feels like this could possibly be like a trilogy of matches between the two. And if that's the case, I'm inclined to pick Randy Orton here. I think Edge is almost like a little bit too obvious. And we've been talking on recent Monday nights, on recent Winged Eagle podcasts, about the possibility that maybe Edge goes heel in a few months somewhere down the line once the honeymoon of him being back wears off. And I'm still bummed out that we can't have Edge back in front of an audience. Like, that is just heartbreaking to me. So I feel like a lot of him being back and the glory of him being back might be worn off a bit. And by the time we do get the audience back, maybe they're over him and they're not going to cheer him as hard as they would anyway. So maybe he goes heel. Because based on his acting and his promo work during this entire program, the promo work has been 10 times better than the actual fighting and the matches these two guys have had. And this might be the same case tomorrow at Backlash, because this past Monday, the past couple of weeks on Raw, the promos have been outstanding between these guys. So I just don't know how good this match can really be and how it's going to possibly live up to this moniker and what direction they're going to go in, whether we're going to get one more match again or if it wraps up here and moves on. I'm sure a lot of the fans would like this match to wrap up here, or the feud to wrap up here after this match and just have Edge win and that's it. But then, like, what do you really do with Randy Orton after that? You know, Randy can afford the loss. It's not going to kill him or anything. Look at him. He's Randy Orton. No big deal. But still, is that something that you do with a star like Randy Orton? Just have him job twice and that's it. Edge hasn't been around in 9 years. It's not conceivable that Randy Orton can't beat this guy one time, especially after Edge won so decisively at WrestleMania. So I'm picking Randy Orton. I'm picking Orton to win tomorrow. Just using my own WWE logic in my head, seems like, I don't know, Orton going down twice, if that's something they would really do. But maybe they do. So, yeah, but Randy Orton, I'm picking him. I'm just doing it. I think he's going to take the match tomorrow somehow. And he could cheat. We could see a swerve. You know, one thing we have to remember about WWE obsessively ramming this tagline up our rectums is that it could be a way to do a finish that's the exact opposite of what a greatest wrestling match ever would see. So I don't think they'd be ballsy enough to do a DQ. That would be ridiculous. Or a disqualification or anything like that. But I think Randy Orton's going to have to cheat to win. Ref bump, chair shot, that type of thing. And then Edge can be like, look, you piece of garbage. You sat there and went on and on about how I couldn't beat you in a wrestling match, and I had you beat, Randy. I had you beat in that wrestling match. We wrestled bell to bell inside those ropes, and I speared you, and I had you pinned for a 20 count. But the referee was knocked out and didn't see it. And what did you do, Randy? You went under the ring and grabbed a weapon, and you bashed me over the head with it, and you won in a cheap, sleazy way after you said I couldn't beat you, and blah, 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 right? Setting up the blow-off, the rubber match, the stip, whatever they do at SummerSlam. Not Extreme Rules. Maybe they skip a month, let Edge go home, come back at SummerSlam when things might look vastly different. We might have some people in the Performance Center by then, assuming SummerSlam is going to be moved there and we might have a small audience there. So that could be what they do, and that's kind of what I'm inclined to believe in my head. Orton. Randy Orton. So there you go. Just to recap, Apollo Crews retaining over Andrade, Bayley and Sasha retaining over Alexa, Nikki, and the Iconics, Jeff Hardy beating Piss Boy Sheamus, Asuka retaining over Nia Jax, Strowman retaining over The Miz and Morrison, Drew retaining over Bobby Lashley, and Randy Orton defeating Edge. So that is, let's see, 1, 2. Two heels I have winning in Randy Orton and Bayley and Sasha. Everybody else is baby faces. Apollo, Jeff, Asuka, Strowman, and Drew. Where am I wrong, guys? I'm wrong in here somewhere. There's no way I'm going to go perfect in my predictions tomorrow. So you guys let me know what you think I've gotten wrong here. Curious. Let me scroll up, knock out some super chats, and wow, I am way ahead of schedule. I thought I was going to have to run out of here. We actually have some time to kill. I got like 30 more minutes, so I can hang out with you guys for a little bit. We'll discuss more stuff. But in about 25 or 30 minutes, I got to roll up out of here. Let me scroll way back up. I want to make sure I'm not missing any super chats. All right, Michael Cuomo, I got yours. Howeezy, I got yours. Dan is here. Good to see you. Does birthing a foot count? Dan, yes, it does. Close enough. Slimy foot. Yeah, that counts for sure. Adrian, there you are again. Thank you for 5 more, man. I appreciate it. Hardy to win with a roll-up while he pretends to be drunk and catches Sheamus off guard. I thought about that too. They could, and they've done that before too. They did that at in WCW with Hall and Nash. I think Nash came out and pretended to be drunk or something. And I think they've even done this before. They've done a couple of times where somebody pretended to be drunk and they weren't or whatever. So Hardy, you know, could he do? I always forget which pay-per-view. Is it Victory Road? Is that the TNA pay-per-view where he's all fucked up against Sting? They could do a throwback to that. It sucks that Bischoff is not still here because he was heading up SmackDown. That's what I would do. If Bischoff was still in the company, I mean, assuming Jeff would be okay with this is all, you know, potentially touchy stuff here and you don't want to, you know, dredge up any uncomfortable feelings or offend anyone or anything like that. But if they wanted to do that throwback where Jeff comes out and he's all staggering around and shit, and then Bischoff comes out to the ring, just like he did in TNA, you know, and kind of tries to explain to Jeff that, you know, you're going to go down, and then Jeff reveals that he was just faking, attacks Sheamus and is able to beat the crap out of him and beat him. I'd do a throwback to that. So they could do something like that where he tries to trick him, but again, it's another thing that we've seen before, and if Jeff Hardy comes down to the ring all staggering and weeble-wobbled, we're going to know as fans that he's faking. So it wouldn't even be that big of a surprise or a swerve. He got you. If anything, it's just going to make Sheamus look stupid. So maybe not, but I can totally see that happening, though, Adrian, for sure. Spaz, thank you for 10 more. I appreciate that. We got New Day, Forgotten Sons, Seth Murphy, Theory, Humberto turning to join Garza and Andrade, Carlos Escobar in NXT with Wild and Mendoza, the Undisputed Era Imperium. Could we have Gang War pay-per-view? Maybe. Survivor Series is coming up. You know, Vince is always... I've heard stories that Vince likes factions and that Vince doesn't like factions. So sometimes I'm really not sure, but we do seem to have a lot of stables around, with the most recent one being Escobar along with Joaquin and Mendoza there. So... yeah, we could be setting up for something. You could do a double thing. You'd have a big War Games match with some of these factions and do some shit at Survivor Series. So if all these little stables can actually stay glued together until then, which shouldn't be hard, but, you know, 5 months is a long time in WWE creative life, so who knows what kind of creative decisions they'll make between now and then. But if all those little stables are around and still together, I'm down for something like that later on this year. All right, who else am I missing? Adrian, again, thank you again, brother. Very generous. Would it really make much of a difference if Miz Morrison won the belt? title is watered down anyways, and Braun is hardly setting the world on fire. No, it wouldn't make any difference. I just don't think they're doing it. I think Strowman is not done with The Fiend. I think this is just a time-killing match for him to have, so they don't have to rush Braun Strowman in The Fiend. Plus, Roman Reigns was out, kind of changing up stuff. So I feel like this match is Braun Strowman treading water, is all it is. Giving him something to do, and that's literally it. Now, if Miz and Morrison won the title, I wouldn't be like upset or offended as a wrestling fan by any means. I don't really care. I think they could be pretty entertaining with it if they did. Some of the promos that they could do, and watch them be bros and be a team and be hilarious together. But there's going to be still that underlying tug of war kind of with the belt, to where they might both want to hold it or whatever, because they're both so narcissistic and, they're both so self-absorbed. They're not going to be selfless with that title. And, oh, you hold it today. Eventually they would quarrel for it, and that would be entertaining. But I think this, like I said, it's just something for Strowman to do until he gets to his SummerSlam opponent, which will either be The Fiend or whenever Roman Reigns makes his way back to TV. I'm sure he will be back in the mix there as well. But yeah, I think this is just a match to get Strowman through the summer and put him into SummerSlam with a big opponent. So if they wanted to do the title switch here, they could put it back on him at Extreme Rules. If they did the switch, put it on Miz and Morrison, let him hold the Universal title for 1 month, and then next month Strowman takes it back and then goes into SummerSlam. They could do that if they wanted, but I'm still voting no. But hey, we got to see a title change, right? So you might be onto something, Adrian. I'm not discrediting any ideas because I don't feel confident about my predictions at all. Devlin, thank you for $5 more. Shit, where'd you go? There you are. Hopefully we get Edge versus Corbin for his real retirement at WrestleMania in like 3 years. That would be hysterical. Corbin putting down another legend. Oh my God, he would never shut up about it. Yeah, we might get an official Edge retirement. We got to remember, Edge is back, but it's going to be a short-lived return. I think he's probably back for 3 to 5 max, and that's it. And then he'll retire. That would be interesting. That would be a really interesting thought, actually. If someone were to come back, like let's say, for example, WWE, I guess the Hall of Fame didn't return till 2004, but like what if WWE decided to put Shawn Michaels in the Hall of Fame prior to his return in 2002 because they thought he would never be back? And then he came back and wrestled like 8 more years. Shawn arguably had 2 separate Hall of Fame careers. Previous to his injury was a Hall of Fame career. Main evented WrestleMania, main evented multiple WrestleManias, multiple world titles, was considered the best in the business for many years. He had a Hall of Fame career when he lost to Steve in 1998. He also had a Hall of Fame career from 2002 to his retirement in 2010. Both equally as impressive, and if those resumes were occupied by 2 separate wrestlers, they would both be going into the Hall of Fame. So Edge, if he comes back to work like more than 5 years, if he's having a match 7 years from now, could he be a 2-time Hall of Famer? Like, it's a silly question here, but like literally, like you could literally separate out his career into 2 runs, and he could be in the Hall of Fame for both of them. He's already been in the Hall of Fame prior to everything he's accomplished after that. Could be interesting. He might be a record breaker. He might be the first guy to ever do that, to actually wrestle way beyond his retirement induction, which was way back in 2012. So it's too bad he didn't come back 5 years ago. That might have actually been an option. Anyway, just something to think about for the future. If we get anybody else that finds himself in this situation, I don't know. Austin Kinkle, good to see you as well. Always good to see you. By the way, next Saturday, all the Patreon shout-outs will return when the Winged Eagle podcast returns. Do you think this greatest match ever gimmick might have been meant for Saudi show? For a Saudi show, I think Orton will win since Drew needs a new challenger. Yeah, we talked about Drew and Randy Orton, actually. That would be a potentially really good, fun match. They can maybe even do that in between an Orton and Edge blow-off. Maybe Orton beats Edge, and then he's going to say, hey, I won the greatest match ever. That automatically means I'm the number 1 contender for Drew. Orton faces Drew at Extreme Rules, and Drew beats him, maybe even with some help from Edge, setting up the blow-off Orton and Edge match at SummerSlam. Or do you do Drew and Orton at SummerSlam and do the blow-off of Edge and Orton next month. I don't know how that goes, but Drew and Orton is a possibility. I'm down with that for sure. And yeah, the Saudi Arabia thing makes a lot of sense because I thought for sure when Edge came back, he would definitely have a match over there. Edge versus Randy Orton, for them to have that ridiculous tagline attached to that match sounds exactly like something that they would use for Saudi Arabia, the greatest Royal Rumble ever, and all the other dumb shit that they've thrown at those fans over there. This sounds like a Saudi Arabia thing. It actually does. Didn't even think about that. So maybe they already had the graphics made for the greatest match ever and they just wanted to use it. Either way, it's pretty dumb. Yeah, we'll see what happens. That makes a lot of sense, Austin. Didn't even give that a thought before. Taylor Moyes, good to see you as well. Appreciate the super chat as always and you hanging out with us this afternoon. Sheamus to give Jeff Hardy the Irish curse soon. You think so? God, what if they start doing crazy shit? They might. Man, I hope this is the end of it tomorrow. I'm disinterested and have no interest in Jeff Hardy and Sheamus at all anyway, and they've already had a match together and stuff, so let's move these guys on, please, and get it over with. Adrian, thank you, man. Appreciate it. One more super chat, Greg. Enjoy the pay-per-view. I will do my best, man, and I hope you can hang out with us tomorrow as well. Follow me over on the Twitter. I'll be chatting during the show, and hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow after Backlash. Hopefully it's at least an entertaining show and they make the best of it, assuming my predictions go perfect here, and we get no title changes. I'm actually oddly okay with that because, like I said, who do you really want to see drop the belt here? Nobody. I think probably the best option here would maybe be like Miz and Morrison, just because nobody gives a shit about Strowman, and if they won the title, at least that would be entertaining, where if anybody else lost the titles, I think there might be a fair amount of anger. You know, if Apollo dropped it, I think you'd have people bitching. I know if Asuka dropped it, you'd have people bitching. Lashley, some people would probably be bitching. And yeah, and then Bayley and Sasha too, because nobody, Iconics, and I like Alexa and Nikki, but they just dropped the belts. Why would they drop the belts and then just get them right back? They wouldn't have dropped the belts to begin with if they were going to do that. So no title changes really make sense here to me, which is why I think WWE's got to get creative with the show. You can have a pay-per-view with no title changes. That's fine. I actually prefer it because I don't like it when titles change hands all the time. Hell, we just saw a brand new champion crowned last night. That should be enough to hold us over for Backlash, where we don't necessarily need to see that. But in WWE's mind, they might be thinking, hey, if we're not going to have any title matches or title changes here, we need to give the fans something else, some sort of big swerve or something to get them talking. And I don't really see anything crazy happening here. So that's why I think maybe Randy Orton's got to get some sort of a big swerve victory over Edge. And maybe we see The Fiend come out and the Braun Strowman stuff. We might have a Charlotte presence on the show. Her name is absent from these matches here, and she was all over Raw last week. A lot of people are considering Charlotte to be overexposed. Well, she ain't on this pay-per-view, so how many overexposed people are not booked for pay-per-views? But it's very possible that she could sit in on commentary for Asuka and Nia Jax, maybe do a run-in or some interference somewhere. I don't know. Or possibly some people have been speculating that maybe she challenges for a men's title at some point, which I'm not against. You know, Tessa did it. Charlotte can do it too. But I don't know. We'll see. Hell, somebody mentioned Charlotte possibly being the one to challenge Adam Cole for the NXT title, which ironically I think would actually be a good match. I think Charlotte and Adam Cole would be good. I do. But it's going to be Killer Cross, and that's better. So we'll see if she has any sort of influence at all on this show. We still have no clue where Shayna Baszler is. Bianca Belair is falling off the edge of the earth, this flat earth that we're on. At least that's what AJ Styles told me. So there's a lot of people kind of missing here that could maybe, make an appearance. Fiend, Charlotte, somebody else. We'll see. Hopefully tomorrow will be good. Thank you, John Boy. Appreciate it. What's up, Zane? Good to see you as well. So who rolls up in the monster truck tomorrow? Oh, yeah, we're going to have something like that, right? So, yeah, there's going to be some outside shit. Probably Strowman. Does Strowman run over The Miz and Morrison? Something like that. Let me scroll through and read some other stuff. Undertaker could retire Edge. Maybe. No, Mike. Sean only wrestled the one in Saudi Arabia, and that was it. He didn't wrestle here. So, such a shame he did that. Just for the hell of it, give the NXT title to Charlotte. I thought that could actually be an option, but luckily it's not going to be an option, as Adam Cole clearly has this next challenger in line. And we talked about that on Wednesday. For my NXT review, go back and check that out, by the way, on Wednesday. I don't think I'm going to be doing those anymore because the 2 Wednesdays I did them on, very low audience, almost embarrassingly low audience for me, so I'm not going to be doing that anymore. So, if I'm ever off on a Wednesday, you know, maybe I will, or maybe I'll react to the shows or something like that. But as far as reviews, that was probably the end of it last week. I'll just limit my NXT and AEW discussions and results for Saturdays from now on, when the Winged Eagle podcast resumes its schedule next week. But I did talk about that show last week, so check it out. And one of the things I talked about in that, and something that we also talked about in the In Your House review, was Adam Cole's next challenger and who that was going to be. And I had been supporting the idea of Keith Lee. I really like that idea of Keith Lee, just, you know, who's been incredibly dominant. He's a North American champion. Make this guy a double champion. Make him be the one to end this reign by Adam Cole. And then, if you want to hold up the North American title in a tournament, you can give that to Johnny Gargano. Keith Lee has now passed that belt off without having to lose to anyone. Now he's the NXT champion, and he's dominant, and he hasn't lost in ages, and he's putting everybody down, and he has a nice little babyface run with the title, and then he runs into Killer Kross, and Killer Kross takes the title off of him. But instead, Killer Kross is now targeting Adam Cole right now, which some people might think might be a little soon, but you can look at the other side of that coin and say that I like that Killer Kross isn't specifying who he faces. Yes, he's technically a heel, right? That's his character, at least, or so we thought, because he targeted Tommaso Ciampa. But I think Karrion Kross targets whoever he wants. He doesn't care who it is, and I kind of like that. I like that, you know, there's no rules. You know, I'm not gonna go after a heel. He's gonna go after everybody. Anybody he wants to take down, or somebody who has something that he wants, he's gonna target them, and I like that about the character. So I'm embracing the Karrion Kross and Adam Cole stuff, even though prior to Karrion coming in, Keith Lee has really been my guy. Keith Lee and Matt Riddle, I absolutely loved on that roster, and Matt Riddle is now going to be on SmackDown starting next week. So Keith Lee was on quite a roll, but he took a loss last week to Johnny Gargano. He got rolled up in the mixed tag after the shady business with Candice LeRae going down and stuff. So Keith Lee took a pin there, which I didn't really like to see. I kind of was hoping he would go just dominant, full force, and he even had the little interaction backstage with the Undisputed Era where he kind of told Cole he's coming after him too. So on NXT, I don't know if it's going to be automatically Karrion Kross versus Adam Cole, or if Keith Lee is going to be worked into the mix as well there and be a part of that in any way. I don't know if I'd really want to see a triple threat. I'd almost rather see one-on-ones here. So I don't know. Would you do Karrion and Keith in a number 1 contenders match? That's something I'd hold off on doing. I wouldn't want to do it that way. I'd rather just pick one or the other of these guys to face Adam Cole, and I don't know. We'll see. Either way, it's interesting, but I also think this is it. This is definitely it for Cole. He's not going to survive another feud. He got through the Velveteen Dream stuff. I predicted it wrong. I kind of thought Velveteen would win the title, but also acknowledged the fact that if he loses, that could finally be the call up to him for the main roster, because we've heard rumors of Velveteen coming up for quite some time. So there's really not much left for him to do at this point in NXT. And since we've heard about more call ups, wouldn't be surprised at all to see him on the red brand. And if that's the case, rest in peace, Velveteen Dream. So I don't know. But now, Adam Cole, there's no way. He's held that belt for so long. Still a little bit of rumors about his contract too. It's up in a couple of months. Is he going to resign? If he doesn't, does he go join his girlfriend in AEW? And will that factor in to the contract negotiations or not? You know, is WWE going to say, okay, we'll keep the belt on you if you resign, kind of thing? But I think either way, contract or no contract being up, his time is up. I don't see him going through another multiple pay-per-view program and winning again, which is why part of me likes the Karrion Kross idea, because in a way, even though it's completely different, in a way it reminds me of Honky and Warrior, because Karrion put down Ciampa Not a squash, but he did exactly what I said he was going to do. I'm like, he's going to win, and he's going to win hard, and it's going to be decisive. And after the match, you're going to say, wow, Tommaso was really manhandled in that, but still not being a full-blown squash. So it doesn't really have that exact parallel to Honky and Warrior, but Honky was a dominant Intercontinental champion. You know, Cole, I think, is a more dominant NXT champion because he actually wins matches. Honky was always so shady and so chicken shitty and all of that. And he would just cling to that title for over a year, 14 months, whatever it was, until he finally ran into the Ultimate Warrior. And after that long run, after him surviving title match after title match after title match, he's put down in just a matter of seconds. So that could be a similar way that they get the belt off of him against Karrion Kross. If Karrion goes into the ring with him and puts him down the same way he did Tommaso Ciampa, you're going to believe, holy shit, can you believe that? After a dominant 15-month run, however long Cole has been the champion now, by the time he finally drops that belt, after that long run, year and a half, whatever it is, he goes down like that, definitively, decisively. Karrion Kross owned him, you know, just put him down, held up the title in the most dominant way ever with his foot on the chest, you know, of the guy that's held the title for all this time. What a way to launch him. And I said Karrion Kross is really the only guy I see that has the potential. And potential is a big word because WWE will screw that up. He's the only guy that I currently see, and I've seen in a long time, that has the potential to have a similar rise to the top that Brock did. Not the exact same, because Karrion is still in NXT. He's not coming out there challenging Strowman or McIntyre yet, but he's dominant. He's coming right after the title, and much like Brock when he came back in 2002, won the King of the Ring right into SummerSlam to beat one of the biggest stars ever in a very dominant fashion. You know, and being launched, and, you know, here we are 20 years later, and he's still literally the biggest draw that wrestling has. This is the closest chance we've had to that, so don't screw it up, WWE. If you're going to do Kross and Cole now, which I'd be fine with waiting, but if you're going to do now, you have to have Karrion Kross win. Not only does he have to win, but he has to win in dominant fashion, because that's the way you're building him. Make it seem impossible to beat him. You know, because for a while there, you're like, is anybody even really believable to beat Brock Lesnar? Even when he came back after WrestleMania 28, challenged John Cena, as dominant as Cena was in Brock Lesnar's absence, not many people thought that Cena was going to stand a chance at him in that Extreme Rules match. And Brock spent the entire match, all 25 minutes of it, just beating the piss out of John Cena, beating him bloody, until Cena pulled a fluke win out of his ass like he always does. But even with somebody like that coming back, you're like, there's no way Cena's going to beat him. Build Kross like that. Make it seem like nobody can beat this guy. You know, he might be the only chance. He might be your only chance to put somebody into the void that Brock will leave one day. To me, it seems impossible. I've given up on any void like that ever being filled. We never filled the Rock void. We never filled the Austin void. There's plenty of voids that have never been filled, but maybe, just maybe, we might be able to carry on and have somebody like Brock on the roster that does Brock type of stuff. Maybe we even see, I know Matt Riddle really wants a chance, you know, at Brock Lesnar one day. I'd still like to see that, you know, but maybe Paul Heyman dumps Brock one day and becomes the advocate for Killer Kross or something, or Karrion Kross. I don't know. But I just really want to see that character succeed because it's showing so much promise, at least early on. And if they're going to treat him like big time, then do it. Then treat him like big time. And I think putting the belt on him now and just strapping a rocket to him is the best way to do that there. So anyway, there's my thoughts on the Karrion stuff. And I'm going to have to be getting out of here in a minute. I would really appreciate any more thumbs up that you guys can give me before I bail out of here. I'll hang out for about 5 more minutes, and then I got to roll. I don't know. Well, I've seen the Cena void's kind of been filled with Roman. That was filled easier than the Austin stuff. I mean, we'll never see another Austin or Rock again, no matter how hard they try. And the closest thing to that, filling those voids, was Cena, even though he wasn't nearly as good or entertaining. Heyman becoming Matt Riddle manager, I just can't see that because of Matt Riddle's character. You know, he's just that, yeah, bro, stoner type of dude. I can't even see Paul Heyman associating himself with that. Where Karrion Kross seems a little bit more likely, although Karrion is with Scarlett. So I don't know where that leaves her. But I don't see it being Riddle. But Heyman has turned on Brock before, and we've speculated on Heyman doing that even in recent years. You know, Heyman turned on him 18 years ago at the Survivor Series when he joined up with the Big Show for some stupid reason, which still looking back on to me made no sense at all. But, so, and we've talked about that Heyman is not... Balor, oh yeah, Finn Balor also called out Keith Lee. That's right. We'll talk about that too. So Heyman's not above doing that, and we've even speculated of him doing that, recently. But, we got a long way to get there. We got to make sure Heyman's even going to stick around in WWE. We don't know what the future of Brock is. We're assuming, at least the reports are saying, that he'll be back for some sort of a SummerSlam match. So that might put him in the ring against Drew again, which makes me nervous. But whatever the future holds for him and wherever we see ourselves in 6 months to a year from now, then maybe you can do something like that. But I just want to see WWE do right by Karrion Kross. They're off to a good start with him. And for the first time ever, I feel like there's somebody here that has a chance, just a chance. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but they have a chance to become close to what Brock became. And that's a big if, though. The ball's in WWE's court. All they have to do is not be stupid. That's all. Seems very easy to not be stupid. And all they have to do with Karrion Kross is not be stupid, and he should draw money. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I know you don't want me to leave Devlin, but I got to go to work. Sucks. Got to pay them bills. It's expensive to have a place like this in San Diego. It's no joke. It's a great city, but man, you got to literally pay a kidney to live here. Oh man, RVD versus Matt Riddle. That would have been great. Like 2002 RVD against Matt Riddle. Holy crap. I just watched Vengeance 2002 the other day. Hadn't seen that pay-per-view in years, and it was right after so much stuff was going on. It was right after the WWF changed to WWE. It was right after Austin walked out. It was right after Hogan's nostalgia WWE title run, and Brock had just come in. He had won the King of the Ring, I think, defeating Rob Van Dam, and then they had the rematch at Vengeance. And what was funny is I haven't seen Vengeance in years, but in my head, in my wrestling head, I was under the assumption that Brock steamrolled everybody on his road to SummerSlam to beat Rock for the title. So, and I had also forgotten that RVD was Intercontinental Champion this time too. So when I saw that it was an Intercontinental title match, I'm like, holy shit. I just thought it was a rematch from the King of the Ring. Like Austin and Mark Merrow had a rematch at the July pay-per-view after their King of the Ring years ago. So I kind of thought it was just like a King of the Ring rematch and Brock would just beat him again and then go on to face Brock. But when I saw RVD as champion and then it was a title match, I'm like, oh, that must mean it's a DQ because Brock didn't win the Intercontinental title and WWE had already plans to put the WWE title on him, so they wouldn't have had him win the title here anyway. So I was interested to see how that match ended, and RVD actually won. He won via DQ, which surprised the shit out of me. So watching that the other night was a trip because it felt like I was watching it for the first time. I knew that Rock won the title there because he came back as a favor. He was supposed to come back, I think maybe King of the Ring, and he came back a month earlier when Austin walked out, and he came out to help WWE. So they put the belt on him here at Vengeance that was currently being held by The Undertaker. It was a triple threat with Taker, Rock, and Kurt Angle, and it was a great match, really good. And The Rock won the title in the end, and then he passed it to Brock the very next month. And I was at a couple of shows leading up to the Brock-Rock match. There was a SmackDown taping in Fayetteville that I went to really close. I was like on the floor, pretty close to the ring, with Brock and Rock hyping up their match and stuff. So that was a really fun time, but I hadn't seen Vengeance in so many years. I kind of forgot the matches and what happened, and so it was all like watching it for the first time. Jericho and a very young John Cena coming out to generic music. They were in Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, and he's got the red and white on for the Red Wings back when he was wearing the team colors of every city. Just watching that early, cheesy, shitty John Cena was quite an entertaining experience. Good stuff. So maybe I'll do a review on that coming up. But I'm kind of backlogged right now. I got 2 live streams coming up. I'm trying to knock them both out this month, but I don't have a date on them yet. But I'm going to be doing one really soon, probably next week. I might shoot for next Sunday. So I'll know hopefully by Monday night when we do the Raw review. And we're going to talk about Money in the Bank 2011, the Summer of Punk, the whole John Cena match, the pipe bomb, all that stuff we're going to discuss, and I'm shooting for that next Sunday. I just have to confirm. I'm not sure yet. So I'll keep you guys informed of that this week. But now I got to get out of here. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me this afternoon on this very strange kind of mini Winged Eagle podcast that was kind of a Cliff's Notes version. But we'll be back to regular format next week. I'm very excited. Don't forget to join me tomorrow night immediately following Backlash, and Monday night immediately following Raw. This is the 5th straight weekend. You get me 3 days in a row. How lucky are you guys? All right, y'all. I'm out of here. I'd appreciate it. Be good. See you tomorrow. Peace.